Baby Don't Lie, Bobby and I wrote that song in between rehearsal moments at Bruce Springsteen's Christmas shows in Asbury Park. We would run on stage, rehearse the songs we were going to do, run off stage, and then somebody else would come up because he had like a lot of different acts. And I'd say, quick, write something. and that's really how we did it. It took 20 minutes, and then they called us back up to rehearse. So.
Right. Lost.
Lost, a song written by Jeff Kazee. He had a great song, Jeff Kazee, my keyboard player, that he played for me. And I said, oh, I really want to do that on the album. And then he came a week later, he said, I've got a better song. I said, I really like that one. He said, no, you got to hear this one. And it was Lost, and he was right. It's a better song.
I Won't Sing.
I Won't Sing. That, again, is another song that Bobby and I wrote during rehearsals at the Christmas shows. It is not about anybody who anybody thinks it's about. It's about somebody else. I'll be cryptic about that.
Very cryptic. No Easy Way Down.
No Easy Way Down. I was going to do a Dusty Springfield 4 or 6 song CD EP to give away for New Year's, which I usually try to give something away New Year's. I never got around to doing it just because of time constraints, but I still wanted to do that song. And when we started writing the songs for this album, it fit in so well that we just did it. And it's great. I love to sing it live, too.
Living with the Blues.
Living with the Blues. I don't even remember when I wrote that. That's an older song. I guess that song's maybe 8 years old. It's lost in the mists of memory. I don't remember writing it. I remember writing it, but I don't remember where or how or anything else.
Cadillac Jack.
There's a guy named Kevin Gordon, and he's from Monroe, Louisiana. Let me say it again. A friend of mine from Nashville, a guy named Kevin Gordon from Monroe, Louisiana, not Monroe. I met him down there. We became good friends, and he had this song, Cadillac Jack. And I said, I'd really like to do that someday. So when we started doing the blues album, it really didn't seem appropriate because it's not really a blues song. It's more a rock and roll song. But Kevin came to the studio one day, and I said, well, we got to play something. And I couldn't think of anything, so we did that song, and it ended up on the album. That's how much forethought I put into my album. I'll just play anything.
All Night Long.
All Night Long is a song that Bobby and I wrote for, I guess, Better Days. Just sitting around in his house. He came up with a riff, and I came up with the idea about an old guitar player friend of mine who stopped playing guitar because he got religion. And, that never made any sense to me, so I thought I'd write a song about it.
Coming Back.
Coming Back, Steve Van Sant with another one of his great power songs. Some anger in it, which really, when he writes about being angry, he really writes great rock and roll. And he brought that to the sessions, and I said, great, let's do it.
And the anger is about?
I think Steven's angry about a lot of things. So am I. We're not angry about the same things, but, once you're angry, you can sing anything that has anger in it. So.
Working Too Hard.
Working Too Hard is, I forget exactly how that came about. Steven and I were sitting down to try to write some things, and he came up with the idea of Working Too Hard, and then he ended up writing all of it himself, but we were bouncing around a bunch of ideas, and that was just one of them. A lot of the things that happened so quickly and in so strange ways that you don't really remember exactly how everything happens. All you remember is what happens afterwards when you actually sit down to do the song.
Love on the Wrong Side of Town.
God. Love on the Wrong Side of Town. I've been doing that song now for, I guess it's close to 30 years. 25 at least. That was a song that Stephen and I were both big Drifters fans and all that kind of stuff. And he started to write in the different styles of all the different musics that we liked, whether it be blues or R&B or soul or doo-wop. And that was just one of those songs that he had an idea about a girlfriend that he used to have, and I remember her too. And he wrote this song, and he said, here's this kind of song. I said, great horns, everything.
Without Love.
Without Love is an Aretha Franklin song. That's actually Ivy Jo Hunter's kid, I think it is. We both had listened to some later Aretha Franklin albums, and we really were enamored of a lot of the songwriting, the craftsmanship. The arrangements are a little strange, and of course she's a great singer, so she makes everything sounds good. But that was just one of the songs we both kind of looked at each other and went, let's try that. And it's become a staple of the show.
Some things just don't change.
Some Things Just Don't Change is a song that when we first recorded it, I did it live about 5 times, realized it was so hard on my voice to do that song in a 2-hour show that I dropped it because I was singing it so over the top hard, really pushing it. And it wasn't until years later that I realized I didn't have to do that it's such a great song, you don't really have to sell it. And so you put it back into the show, and it's still tough. I mean, it's a real workout as far as a song for your voice, but it's such a great song. I love doing it.
And you got a cold today, so it's going to be even more of a workout.
Well, you know, my voice is a little rougher than usual, but it's certainly I'm never going to be Perry Como. Besides, he's dead.
Talk to me.
Talk to me is we were in the studio, Stephen and I making the first album, and Bruce came in and he said, I got songs. And we said, yeah, get out of here. No, and he had this song, and he had a bunch of songs, and we picked the ones we liked. You know, I remember he sat down with Fever and played Fever, and I said, you can't let me do that. That's one of your best songs. You've got to put that on your album. He goes, that doesn't fit on my album. You do it. I said, okay. Talk to Me was like that, too.
Right. The Fever.
I just did that. Fever has been one of the staples of the show. I doubt that there have been more than 20 shows after all these years that I haven't done Fever in. And it is a great singer's song. It's a song you can do differently. You can sing differently. You can sing it from different angles emotionally. It's one of those songs that a guy writes and you go, yes, I want to sing that song. It's like a classic barroom song.
So tonight you don't know how you'll be treating it until you
No.
get there. It's the same every night.
I never know how
Different.
any of the songs until I get on stage. I mean, it depends on the mood I'm in, what kind of emotional state, you know. The song before a lot of times dictates how you're going to approach the next song. If the song before it is really emotionally gripping about anger or sadness, sometimes it leaks into the next song. I try not to. I never go through the motions with any of these songs. I try to get emotionally involved in them. Sometimes it's different emotions, and I like that. I don't think any song can be just one thing.
Don't want to go home.
I've been doing I Don't Want to Go Home since I was 3 years old, it seems like. I think I've sung that song more than I've sung any other song in my life. Still not sick of it, although there are times I go, oh, God, not again. But as soon as the song starts, the drums and the horns come in, the audience goes nuts, and that lifts you right back up. So it's just one of those things. It's a song that'll never go away, which I'm glad it's that and not yummy, 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 I got love in my tummy or something like that. Some people get stuck with the worst songs in the world. I'm lucky I've got some great songs.
This time, Baby's Gone for Good.
This time, Baby's Gone for Good is another song that very emotionally gripping for me. It's a song I really relate to very strongly. And I use it usually in the show to pull me into emotions. I'll call it when I feel like I'm not giving enough, like I'm singing and I'm having a good time, but I'm not focused emotionally enough. And I'll call that song because that always drags me in. It's one of those songs that it takes you into the heart of the song.
Take It Inside.
Take It Inside is another one of those songs just like This Time Baby's Gone for Good. It's a very aggressive song, and if I feel like the band is cruising a little bit too much and, you know, maybe relaxing a little bit, although the Dukes don't really relax that much, I'll call that, and Bobby will start it, and we just go from there. And it really does kick a little ass on stage, wakes people up.
So the order of the set is something else that changes as well, yeah, every night?
Yeah, every night's different. We put a set list out and they laugh. I just don't know how to do that night after night. I would be bored. And one of the things I learned early on is that if you give most musicians a chance, they'll become complacent. There's a certain arrogance that goes with musicians sometimes, especially really good musicians like I have. And the only way to keep them focused is to make sure that they don't know what's coming next. Because if they start to settle in like, okay, I finished this, I know what's going to happen now, you don't want that. So you change it up every night. And it does the same thing for me, too. I mean, I don't want to wake up 3 songs later and realize that I've been just kind of, going through the motions. I want every night to be different so that everybody stays engaged and involved. And plus, I get bored. I get bored between songs. I do.
Hearts of Stone.
Hearts of Stone is one of the great rock and roll ballads. I mean, I don't think it gets much better than that. Great lyrics. Steve Van Zandt plays a great solo in the recording. And it is a knockout live. We do it all sorts of ways. With the horns, without the horns, just Bobby and I. I've done it a cappella. It's a song that carries so much weight in and of itself that you really don't have to worry about which way you do it. Just sing it.
Trapped Again.
Trapped Again is that song has a weird genesis. I wrote a slow song called Trapped Again about a relationship I was in with a girl in California, and I was living in New Jersey, and one of those long distance things that cost a fortune. And I gave it to Steve to write some music to, and he turned it into what it is now, which is a much more up-tempo. He had a riff and a bass part. And at first I didn't like it. I thought, no, that's not what it was. But as soon as the band played it, he played it for me on piano. But as soon as he showed me the arrangement with the band, I said, oh, yeah, that's great. Let's do that.
Why is Love Such a Sacrifice?
Sacrifice is one of Billy Rush's best songs. Still a great crowd pleaser, a real sing-along song. We don't do it every night, but we do it a lot. We have been doing it a lot lately. Songs come and go. There are songs we've done for 10 years in a row that disappear for 5 years and then come back. And songs that we haven't done for 10 years that we're starting to do again. One of the things about the internet, which is great, is that the fans get to request songs that they haven't heard for a long time. And I try to listen.
Long Distance?
That's one of the songs. Long Distance is a song that we hadn't done for a long, long time. I wrote it with Billy 20 years ago, and it's a mid-tempo song, and I'm a little more aggressive on stage than I need to be sometimes, so mid-tempo songs tend to get shunted aside. But we started to do it again, and I'm really enjoying it.
Help Me.
Help Me is a classic Sonny Boy Williamson song. Sonny Boy Williamson, the great blues harmonica player, singer, real eccentric, wild guy. Came over here to England a number of times and used to buy shoes on Seville Row, the really good shoes, and then cut the sides of them so his toes could stick out so he could be comfortable. 100-pound pair of shoes. That's a song that I started doing when I first started learning how to play harmonica. That's one of the solos I learned, and that was when I was like 14, 13 years old, sitting on the beach in Ocean Grove just playing harmonica. And my poor father, I would play the riffs over and over and over again. He would come up and go, can you play something else? But that's how you learn, He's lucky I wasn't playing drums.
Broke Down Piece of Man.
Broke Down Piece of Man is Sam and Dave's song. It's just one of those show tune things, It's a great duet for Bobby and I. It was a great duet for Steve Van Zandt and I when he was in the band. It's just a real crowd pleaser. It's a fun song to do. It's not an emotionally, sink into song. It's just a wild romp.
Right. Do you play all kinds of theatres, all sizes, clubs?
We play any place that people will come to see us. Any place that'll have us. We played the Ferry last night in Glasgow, was it, or wherever the hell? Which is a dump. I mean, it's just an old broken down ferry with a little dinky stage, and you can hit your head on the ceiling. And tonight we play an opera house, so it really doesn't matter. We play anywhere.
Where do you feel most comfortable? The steamy club?
Actually, I like a theater. I think people are more comfortable. There are a lot of fans of the Jukes who like to come and dance and drink and all that stuff, and certainly I like that too. But I like it when there's a setting where I can do different things. Sometimes in a bar, you really feel like you've got to just crank it out, and just continually pound. But I'm certainly comfortable there. I grew up in bars, it seems like. I started playing in bars when I was 14, 15 years old with some friends of mine. moving equipment and occasionally singing a song. So I'm comfortable anywhere. As long as I have my band, I can do what I want, and I have some audience that knows something about what we're trying to do.
And you said just then, 14, 15 years old. When did you choose Southside?
I didn't choose Southside. It was a nickname that was given to me when we started Dr. Zoom and the Sonic Boom, which was a stupid thing, really. It was Bruce had gone to the West Coast where his parents, I think his dad was living out there, and he came back and he's broke, and we were all kind of broke. So he said, let's put together a band of every musician we know. I got this guy who wants to give me some gigs at this place. I don't have a band. Let's just grab everybody. So we had 2 drummers, 4 guitar players, a couple of horn players, a choir. We had a Monopoly game on stage. We had baton twirlers. We had everybody who we knew was in this band. It was like 30 people. And everybody had to have nicknames. And so they just started doling them out. You know, I would say something about this guy, and then somebody would say something about that. And at some point, somebody called me Southside because of the South Side of Chicago, which is the kind of music that I loved and tried to play. And it's stuck. I can't get rid of it. Many times I want to, but that's the way it is.
And around that time, I understand when you were about 14 or 15, you were around Asbury Park. You were the guy who knew the lyrics to
That's right.
1,000 R&B and soul songs. Is that truth?
I was one of those guys that I could remember a lyric if I heard it once. And I used to stay home from school and listen to my parents' records on the radio, black radio, back in the 50s when I was a kid, 12, 11, and clean the house. I'd say to my mom, I don't want to go to school today. She goes, you got to make the beds, you got to vacuum, you got to do the dishes. I said, fine. You know, I just don't want to go to school. And I would play their records, and they played a lot of, they had a lot of T-Bone Walker and, you know, Jimmy Rushing with Count Basie. And I just learned hundreds and hundreds of songs just by listening to them, and also listened to black radio where they played Elmore James and Muddy Waters and like that. And it turned out that I had a facility for remembering it. So when I started to hang around with bands, people would ask, well, what's the lyric to the 3rd verse of this song or that song? And I go, oh, it's blah, 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 blah. So that's how I got my job. I said, he knows the lyrics, he's going to be the singer.
And 1,000 is not an exaggeration, no?
Oh, I know a hell of a lot more than 1,000 songs.
I'm sorry.
Any good musician after this much time's got to know
Right.
5,000 songs.
Can you tell us a bit about that sort of 60s and early 70s Asbury Park scene? You know, the club there, Upstage Club?
Well, it actually started with, there was actually Mrs. J's, which was on the boardwalk, which became the Stone Pony years and years later. Asbury Park was kind of a honky-tonk resort town, beach resort town. And it had a lot of bars, the Student Prince and all these other real divey kind of places, and bands would play there. And when I was very young, of course, we used to go over and play pinball because it had a lot of amusement parks. So we'd walk past these bands, would be playing the dirty words to Ray Charles, What I Say, and all this stuff. And it seemed like this exotic world that we wanted a part of. So when the Upstage Club opened up, there was no alcohol served, so kids could get in. And that's where we started to hang out when I was, I guess, 16, 17, 18, in there. I don't remember exactly. And every musician, every teenage musician, ended up at that club because it was open till 5 o'clock in the morning. So even if you had a gig at a bar that lasted till 1:32, you'd finish and run to the Upstage Club and jam. And I lived about a half a mile away, so I was there just about every night.
Do you remember the very first band that you played in?
Well, it's when I was 14, my best friend, Dougie Wayne, he liked to sing too. And we would sing at parties. You know, teenagers had parties. Whether we were asked or not, we would sing. And we would do all sorts of different things, Righteous Brothers songs and whatever struck our fancy. But the first band I ever sang with was a band called Sonny and the Starfires, which was a local legend. Sonny Ken and a bunch of people. And Vinny Mad Dog Lopez, who was one of Bruce's drummer on the first couple of albums, he played in that band. But first, my friend Doug was a drummer in that, so I started hanging around with them, and occasionally they'd let me sing songs on stage, which was great. You know, the pressure was off kind of, in that it wasn't my band, so I, you know, if I wasn't any good, it was like, oh well. And that's actually where I first started singing. And then Sonny, the leader of that band, they did a lot of 50s covers, Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley. He wanted to start playing more blues, and he knew that that's what I was really interested in. So he called me one day and said, I want you to be the singer in my new band. And I went, what do you mean? I'm not a singer, but he convinced me. That's almost 40 years ago. That bastard.
And that band was?
The band was the Sunny Ken Blues Band, or was it called? I don't really remember. Maelstrom was one of them. You would change names every other week because...
But it was blues.
It was all blues, yeah.
Which takes us nicely to the album before going to Dukesville, which was Messing with the Blues.
Yeah.
50% originals, 50% covers. It was harking back to the thing that you love, the thing where it all started, which was the blues. It was recorded on 24-track analog to get
That's
that,
right, absolutely.
to get that one. Tell us about this beautiful album made in 2000.
Well, I mean, as I say, I started out listening to my parents' records. They had a lot of blues records. I fell in love with blues. I listened to black radio stations in New Jersey and Philadelphia and New York, and they played a lot of that Chicago-style blues. And my brother Tom wanted to be Bob Dylan when he first came out in the early 60s, so he bought a guitar and a harmonica, but he didn't buy the harmonica holder, the rack. So I stole his harmonica, and I learned how to play like Jimmy Reed. At least I thought I played like Jimmy Reed, and Little Walter and Sonny Boy Williamson. So when I really started playing in bands, that's the music I wanted to do. Then more R&B. I got more involved in the Stax stuff and all of that great songwriting and the incredible singing. And I really wanted to do that on stage more than try to play note-for-note renditions of Muddy Waters. So I got out of it for a long, long time. And then I realized later on that I was, when you're 16 years old, you're not supposed to be singing deep blues. I mean, you really don't know that much about it. So last year, in my 50s, I realized that, maybe I have enough wear and tear, been beaten up enough times by love and all that, that I can actually do justice to some of these songs I've wanted to sing for so long. And that's when Gary Talent said, hey, we've been talking about making a record together for years. I've got time, you've got time, let's do a blues album. And that's what we did.
Which covers all styles.
Yeah, I'm not interested in doing 12 slow blues in a row. And I'm not interested in the standard boom, do-do, do-do. That's boring to me. I wanted to explore all the New Orleans, the West Coast, Chicago, all the strange ways that blues have evolved. Hey. And so, we did. We got a great drummer who's played with Bobby Bland and B.B. King, and I used Bobby and Jeff from my band. And, of course, Gary played bass. So we had a great rhythm section, and we just started wailing in the studio. We recorded an analog, 24-track. And Gary came to me one day, and he said, John, you wanted to do an analog, you wanted that real warm sound. I said, yes, because we got it. But now we have to make a CD of it, so it has to go to digital information at some point. I said, no. And he said, no, we got to master it digital. I said, you got to find me somebody who understands what I'm talking about. So I said, I got the guy. We walk into this place real nice. You know how it's all clean and very sharp angles and black and chrome. And I went, oh, I don't like this. And out comes this aging hippie with the long white beard and the sandals, and the ripped up jeans. And I went, he's the guy. And he was great. I think he made it sound as warm as any digital recording can sound. It doesn't have a lot of that edge to it, that ping that you can hear. So it worked out. I was very pleased with the way it sounded.
If I could just pick up on one of the things you said about when you're 16, 17, 18 years old, you cannot be singing the blues. Around the late 60s, mid-60s, there are a lot of English kids called Eric Clapton and Peter Green.
But they were playing the blues. I think there's a difference. Muddy Waters said it, too. He said, all these guys can play rings around me, but nobody can sing the blues like me, or like a black guy who's in his 40s or 50s, And I think it's partly true. I don't think it's completely true. I think anybody who's had enough experience to understand the songs can sing them, But I think a white 16-year-old kid from a little retirement Methodist town in Ocean Grove, New Jersey is pushing it a little bit, It takes a while to really be able to do justice to the emotion.
But what was your opinion of the British invasion?
I
the
thought they were
Creams,
great.
the Fleetwood Macs.
I thought we just heard Peter Green's song on the radio today. I love Peter Green. Fleetwood Mac was great. But he was a unique person. And I think it takes that. And Eric Clapton, of course, is a phenomenal blues player. Jack Bruce is a singer. But they didn't really do blues, if you know what I mean, Cream. John Mayall, good band. Not a great blues singer. You know, I mean, I loved them. I saw him play.
Yeah.
Great. But you know what I mean, I think it takes a little while, like Paul Butterfield and those guys were a little bit older and had been through a lot of different things.
Right, right. And in things like the Sundance Blues Band that you were in, that was still full-on blues, yeah. So,
Yeah.
So the switch to what the Asbury Jukes were all about, that came through, as I understand it, a band called the Blackberry Blues Band. That was
Blues band.
Booze Band.
Yeah, that's what they were called anyway. It was a strange little situation. I had been knocking around for a number of years, and I didn't really have any direction I wanted to go in. Still playing a lot of blues and playing a lot of harmonica. And this guy, Stewie, started a band, and he said, come and play in my band. I went, okay, I didn't have anything. But he wanted to sing all the songs. He would let me sing 2 songs a night, and I played all the harmonica on every song. And I really wanted to sing, and I had a friend named Paul Green. He was in the Blackberry Blues Band. They made him sing because none of them wanted to sing. He didn't want to sing. He wanted to play harmonica. So we were sitting at a bar commiserating with each other. I said, well, why don't you just play with Stewie, and I'll play in the Blackberry. And we decided without consulting either band that we were going to switch jobs. And we did. I showed up at a rehearsal and said, that's it. And that's when I started to take over that band. And that was at a time I really wanted to start singing. We did Billie Holiday songs. We did Big Joe Turner, Sam and Dave, Aretha Franklin. And I wanted to do a lot of that stuff. A little more songwriter songs, if you know what I mean. Rainy Night in Georgia. And that's when I fired the guys that started the band. And Steve came in, and Kevin Cavanaugh, and that's when it started to evolve into the Jukes.
Right, right. And just going back a bit before that, you were very much New Jersey, but you then spent a couple of years out in Richmond, Virginia, I understand. Is that?
Yeah, first that's all right before the Jukes got started, really. For some reason, Bruce Springsteen was big in Richmond, Virginia. This is before he made records, I think. Or maybe even after the first album. But there was a college section down there called the Fan, which is just an area where there's 2 or 3 colleges, and all the college kids live there, so there are clubs. And there's a place called the Back Door. And Bruce had his band, and he said, we're going to go down and play. Why don't you come down, meet some people. So I rode in the back of the equipment truck down to Richmond, Virginia. And they played, and I got up and jammed. And Bruce, while I was up singing, he was in the back with this really good-looking redheaded girl shooting pool. So, and he had a girlfriend down there. But this girl said, who's the guy singing? He goes, oh, that's Southside. You want to meet him? And she said, no, just bring him home with you. So, and when I walked off stage after jamming, this guy comes over to me and goes, are you in a band? I said, no, not at the moment. We got a band. You want to join? So I sang like 5 songs. I got invited to join a band, and I got a girlfriend. So I figured, hey, I might as well move to Richmond, Virginia. It's happening down here for me. So I stayed down for 3 years.
And the band was Studio B?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So you stayed there for 3 years, and then returning...
I stayed there for 3 years, and the music scene started to dry up a little bit, and I don't know. I just guess I wanted to get back to Asbury Park, and I got married to the girl that was shooting pool with Bruce. So I said, let's go back to New Jersey, and so she came up, and that's when I started playing in bands in the Jukes. I really wanted to do that kind of material, more soul, R&B, rock and roll. And Stephen was right there too. He wanted to do that same kind of stuff.
And for a while you were a duo, Southside and the Kid.
Right. We played a lot of blues at that point, but we tried to do some other songs too. But we were both moving in the same direction at the same time, luckily for us.
All right. Sorry, mate. Right. How much longer do we have?
Should have been here about 15 minutes ago. The place is opening in 4 minutes' time. They've got to finish the bars off.
Well, let's just do another 4 or 5 minutes.
Oh.
Do you have? How much more do you have?
A lot more than 4 or 5 minutes, but we'll have to. That's a great shame because it was. Never mind. Never.
Bring it chatting if you die, and then we'll have to
Yep.
fit it in somewhere, and then we'll have to cut it.
So, how to condense 30 minutes into 4? Yeah, so
Well, do you want to take it into the back room and do some more there? Would that be jarring for you?
it's going great, Johnny. If you're happy about it, I'd really wouldn't like to sort of just zoom it.
Zoom, go ahead. We'll just do it until they throw us out. Don't worry about it.
Right. So if we now go on to the Blackberry Blues Band, that was like the nursery band for the Asbury Jukes.
Yeah.
Now the Asbury Jukes, as much as the music, you had some very visual ideas for the act, for the energetic brass section. Was that you?
I didn't, no. I don't think visually at all. I don't care what anybody wears, and I certainly don't care what I wear. I mean, I boiled it down to T-shirts and jeans because we were on the road so much. I was on the road 13 months in a row at one point. There's just no way. You know, you wear your T-shirts till they stink too badly, throw them out and buy some new ones. But in the beginning, Stephen wanted to do this whole visual thing, and he thinks that way, and I don't. So I said, whatever you want to do, just let me sing. So it was really more his idea.
I see, right.
But the horn section being really active is because of the horn players. They were crazy, and they still are, and they kind of did whatever they wanted to do. And of course, I'm facing front, so I'm not watching them, so they got away with murder, and they still do.
And as the Asbury Jukes were taking off, you had your Live at the Bottom Line promo album. That was the first thing. And then you you got a deal. I'm assuming that Steve Van Zandt was very helpful in getting that deal with,
well,
with Epic.
The deal came sort of first. What happened was that once Bruce hit with Born to Run, his third album, a lot of the record companies sent people down to Asbury Park to see if there's any other bands down there. And of course we were there. We were one of the bands. And a guy named Steve Popovich from Epic Records, which is a subsidiary of CBS, came down. And he's a real street crazy from Cleveland. And he loved the band, but he thought, I don't know. I mean, if I like it this much, how good can it be? Because he, you know, it was at a time when it was all big guitars, Boston, and all that stuff. And we had a horn section in. But so he brought down all the secretaries the next time. And they all danced, and they met guys, and all that stuff. I said, this is great. We're signing these guys. So we said, okay. They give us a great big munificent budget of $35,000 for the first record. Steve and I said, I knew Stephen was eventually going to go with Bruce because we had talked about that. Bruce was really starting to become big, and he needed somebody to lean on. He needed somebody to talk to he could trust. And he and Stephen had been close for a long time. I said, you know, you got to go with him. He needs you more than I do. So we said, we got to make this record now. We had met Jimmy Iovine through Bruce, who was the engineer. And would you stop that, please? So we met Jimmy Iovine, and he's the engineer for the first album. And he said, look, I'm working at the record plant. I can sneak you in, which is the big studio in New York. And we said, great. So we ended up going in whenever he had free time, like 4 o'clock in the morning, all that stuff. And we had to pay for some things, but we both had made some money at the racetrack, believe it or not, the year before. So we borrowed money. And this was before we signed anything. They could have said, this is crap. We don't want it. And we'd have been stuck with the bills.
Right.
But we made the album without any supervision, without any deal signed, with just, you know, the promise that there would be a deal. Right. And it was really great.
And then there was the deal. And then
we made it. Then they came and they said, oh, we really like this, blah, blah, blah. And they signed us to a 3-album deal. And we moved on from there.
And there's been a checkered career with record companies.
Yeah,
so
I don't get along with record companies, and they don't get along with me.
Sorry, I'm under huge pressure of time, so I'm going to have to wind this up, Southside Johnny. But if I could ask you one last question, which is the high point and the low point of your time doing what you love so much.
I guess the high point happens just about every night in some song where I lose myself in the song so much that I no longer exist. There's no John Lyon, there's no Southside Johnny, there's no Jukes, there's no anything but the song. And it's almost a metaphysical moment where it's so overwhelming that when you come out of it that you go, oh, that was really great. It's like the best drug in the world. Right. And that happens a lot. It doesn't happen every night. It doesn't happen in every song. But when it happens, it's like, that's why you do it. Alongside of the fact that you love to please people and see them having a good time, and you need the money. The low point happened a number of years ago. I guess in the 92, 93, something like that. My mom was dying. My voice was really giving me problems. I wasn't happy with anything in my career. I hated every record company person I ever ran into. And my wife and I were splitting up. So it was one of these confluences of all the bad things happening all at once. And I said, I was on stage, I could barely finish the show. And I know that a lot of problems I was having with my voice were psychological, obviously, from all that stress. And I walked off stage and I said, fuck it, that's it. And I quit. I said, I'm not playing anymore. And for 2 years, I held out. And everybody said, yeah, right, you know. But I said, no, I'll never sing another note. And 2 years later, I was back doing it.
Well,
But it was a time when I thought, I never want to hear another piece of music. I never want to hear another note. It's unfortunate that the thing you love the most is the thing that is the most, it takes over yourself. And when you really hate your life, that's what you hate the most, too. So it was really rough.
Well, I hope you have a really great gig. It's been a pleasure, Southside Johnny Lyon, talking to you. And I hope that English cold leaves you alone tonight.
It won't stop me.
Thank you.
Thank you.